Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Joseph James Show. I'm Joseph James, your host. Week after week, we come to you with valuable interviews from the world's most interesting and successful people. Our mission is to build a community of highly skilled and highly intelligent people that learn and work with each other for the betterment of one another. In this week's episode, we have a special guest, Elizabeth Davis, K. Crystal Griffith, who is from Colorado Springs, Colorado, and she has a story and business that you all need to know about. What I'd like to do now is just read a little bio clip so you get to know a little bit more about Crystal. K. Crystal Griffith is a Jesus-loving, sweet tea-drinking Renaissance woman, empowering those around her to walk out their kingdom destiny on a daily basis. Through her company, K. Crystal Griffith Consulting, Crystal's mission is to activate entrepreneurs with business strategies, kingdom connections, and entrepreneur technology to up-level their business personally and professionally, creating a living legacy of successful kingdom impact. Life happens on the way to destiny, leading Crystal to walk with clients through deployments, life-threatening allergies, autoimmune diseases, cancer, traumatic brain injuries, concussions, marriage difficulties, abuse, PTSD, radioactive attachment disorders, dissociative disorders, generational traumas, and all the things that go bump in the night and have influenced Crystal's life directly as well. Crystal is a dual certified inner healing practitioner, business coach, and challenges consultants to help other kingdom impact entrepreneurs who want to use virtual events to advance their reach. Crystal and her beautifully creative, humorous, horse-loving teen daughter make their home in the Rockies. Well, what I'd like to let the audience know is we have the interview will be in 3 parts. We'll get to know Crystal's early childhood, her early business experiences, and then we'll talk about what Crystal is doing for the community currently. So here we go. How are you doing today, Crystal?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. We always like interesting people on the show to help others. So we'll begin the interview. Crystal's going to tell us a little bit about how she came into this world and her early experiences, if you like.
Well, I actually am a living miracle. I should not be here at all. My parents had a really difficult time, not only conceiving, but having children. My mom had a number of miscarriages, and several were stillborns full term. And so because of that, I and my living sister, Desiree, we are quote unquote normal. Not sure my friends would agree with that, but we're the normal kids that were born. And my dad was in the Coast Guard, 22 years. So I had a wide variety of childhood and experiences living from New York to New Orleans. In fact, you and I were just chatting about Brooklyn and Governor's Island. I remember that time so clearly when I was younger, saying goodnight to Statue of Liberty every night. But I also got to do that in New Orleans, and as well as Hollywood, Florida, and Savannah, Georgia, and a number of other places. So I have always enjoyed moving and traveling and getting to see new places. So that's a big part of my childhood, is always being on the go. That's for sure.
Well, I bet that helped a lot with your social skills because you had to make new friends all the time.
All the time, yes.
So you probably needed to be a little bit outgoing if you wanted to make friends, correct?
Correct. And I do think that has been a huge strength for me in public speaking as well as training, and then also getting to know other people. You could drop me in a city and I will probably walk out with 4 or 5 friends.
I kind of feel the same way about myself. I was never shy to move to a new city, and people would say, but you don't know anybody there. I said, so you'll make friends. I mean, people are people. You get along, you get along. That's how it worked for me. So, looking back, did you have any like any traumatic experiences that you that followed you into your adulthood, or was everything happy-go-lucky?
I would tell you my childhood was pretty good. I do have something called osteogenesis imperfecta. I have what's used to be called level 1. They now have a variety of levels to it, but I broke a lot of bones because of that. So every summer I tended to be in a cast. So for some people that might be a little traumatic. For me, it was, okay, which part of the body is going to have a cast this year? In random ways that I would break bones, like falling off a big wheel. If you remember those, you and I look around the same age, and the big wheel, you know, or jumping off things, jumping off slides the backwards way instead of sliding down. I was a very active child. So we had a lot of fun, and it would have been nice to have those 3D casts back when I was growing up, because then I could have kept swimming. I loved swimming. I ruined many casts because
You
I
have a
loved
pretty good attitude about all of that. Is that a kind of I never heard of it before, but is it, would you consider it a rare disease?
It absolutely is, yes. And in fact, I think it was Samuel L. Jackson did a movie called Shattered, and it's about him in a wheelchair. And for a lot of people on that particular spectrum of that disease, if you even hit their finger, if you're on the high end of it, it would break the finger. For me, it was more about my growth plates in random ways that they would not disintegrate, but they would definitely break through. So, you know, I've broke my foot walking, each foot at least once, just walking. And I happened to go to a PT recently in the last couple of years, and he ordered an MRI of my feet, and he comes back, he goes, are you like in a car accident or something? I'm like, well, I've been in a couple of those. Why? And he goes, no, like something that would crush your feet. I'm like, no, not that I'm aware of. He goes, I think you've broken every single bone in both your feet. I'm like, explain a lot of things when I walk. You know, things like you just don't even realize that you've broken the bones sometimes.
Wow, I'm amazed at what you're saying. I mean, to have such a positive disposition and going through all that, did it remedy itself along the way? Do you still have to deal with this, or how's that working out?
It is lifelong, and it's considered genetic. I'm very fortunate that my daughter did not get it. She has her own set of health medical complexities. But for me, I do pay attention. Like, I've never been a sports person. I knew that was not in my forecast. And so I know my limitations. I know my boundaries. Yesterday alone, I went on a little walk with somebody, and the hills were a little too much for me. And I just looked at her. I'm like, I think we're going to have to find flatter ground next time that we do this. So you just live with your boundaries and you keep on going. And
I love yours. That's for life. It's great. It's really good. So one of my questions was, what is the biggest challenge? I guess you answered that one.
Well, you know, that is not my biggest challenge.
Oh, okay. Okay. Go ahead. Tell us.
It's not. In 94, I had just gotten married, just graduated from college, and I was in a car accident, and I had a traumatic brain injury. And in 94, they didn't know nearly what they know now about traumatic brain injuries. And I even had a subdural hematoma show up on the MRI, but there were so many doctors that I did see trying to get out of that pain level because I had never really had headaches prior to that. And I woke up with one that I lived with for about 4 years. It was pretty super intense. I didn't even know my name at times. I would wake up and I'd be like, okay, I know I'm safe. Who am I? Where am I? What's my phone number? And really had to process through some of that cognitive dissociation piece. And even the hum of a refrigerator would just set my head off. It was terrible. And so from there, the doctors would basically just pat me on the leg and go, you just need to go home and sleep it off. You'll be fine. They just didn't know what they know now.
Right.
And out of that, that became a source of strength for me later with my own child, which actually is my biggest struggle. As a medical complex child for her, she is, I think the last count was 29 doctors and 7 different autoimmune diseases and a number of other things. And so because of that, that challenge has been my biggest, and I'm in the middle of it right now. She's 17 and she's every bit of wanting to be 18 and out on her own, but the reality is that may not look traditional for us. And so that's the struggle right now, is finding that balance of giving her the freedom, supporting her as much as I need to in the medical, but walking that out full time every day. So.
Well, God bless you. That is a challenge, because she wants to go one way and you can see her future isn't exactly what she's hoping for. Is that,
right.
Did I got that right?
Yeah.
What it sounds like. So as you're growing up in your teen years, I guess you had all those broken bones going through high school and all that stuff.
They had lessened more once I hit probably about 13, 14. At that point, your growth plates are moving into beginning to close up, which was good for me. They were less intensity to be able to break them. But I did, the summer after I graduated high school, I was walking down the stairs and I broke my foot. And kind of killed me doing camp counseling the rest of the summer. And then a couple of years later, I did the same thing to another foot, just walking on somebody's front lawn. And so there have been some things after that. 2016 was pretty rough. We couldn't quite figure out how they were connected. But 2016, I had a couple things with my feet rise up, and they put me in those 2 walking boots. If you've ever had one of those walking boots.
I've seen them, yeah.
Well, they put me in 2, one on each foot.
Huh.
And I ended up fracturing my tibias because of those boots. And so, the things that you don't know until you walk through them, it was joyful.
You are amazing. I'm just cringing just thinking about having to go through all that. Was there any kind of a mentor or inspirational person or something that kept you going to give you that happy, positive outlook on life is life kind of stuff?
I was really contemplating that question a lot. And here's why. I wouldn't say for that reason, but in hindsight, I would say yes. My great-grandmother on my dad's side, she passed when she was 93, and she was a spry young lady. Like, you would not have thought she was past 65. Always full of life and loved to be active in her community. And she came from that depression period where she had lived through the depression. They had farms. She was out there on the farms. I remember one of the stories that used to go around. They had a fire on the farm, and you saw her come into the house that I only knew as her house, even when I was growing up. And she came in and she went straight upstairs and went to bed for 3 days. And they said that's how she dealt with stress. But once she woke up and once she came down, she had a plan in place. She knew what to do. She started giving the directions and they dealt with it. And, I just used to remember drinking sweet tea on her porch. That's where I got my sweet tea addiction from, Grandma Mimi. And we'd sit on her porch and just rock away in the breeze, and just listening to all her stories of resilience in times that, we hadn't had the pandemic. So in reality, our life had not even been close to what she had grown up with and what she'd been raised in and walked through. So it was always insightful to hear how she dealt with that. And there was a lot of kids in that family. My dad had 10 brothers and sisters. And just that capacity of a large family. They also had a blended family because his dad had died, and the gentleman that his mom married had 5 other kids. So it was interesting to hear how all of that came together, and how Grandma Mimi, played a part in really helping the family function. and where her faith was, and, you know, how she instilled that in all of those kids and in her own ways, her community. And that really impacted me greatly. And one of the times I was actually had an opportunity to go on a trip to take some supplies over to Budapest, which was a really cool experience. And she was like, well, are you sure you need to go? Because we all need help around here in the US, right? And I'm like, but it's overseas, Grandma. And she's like, I know, I always want to go to the Amazon and see those colorful birds. And I so remember that. And she passed before she got to do that. But you know, I'm sure she gets to see so many of the amazing places that she wanted to go. But I appreciate all the things that she instilled in me growing up.
Well, you reminded me of my grandma, who my mother's mother. She passed at a 101. And
That's amazing.
she came from 18 brothers and sisters.
Oh my gosh.
And she said, well, they didn't have TV back then. That's why we had to have something to do. And I was going to ask you, did your grandmother have any songs? Because my grandmother had all of these wacky songs. I don't know where she got them. They were cute, though. But they were like not your average songs for little kids kind of stuff.
Oh, that's funny. We didn't have any of those, but she did get me going on Amazing Grace. I will tell you, my other grandmother, though, my mom's mother, she had the one, Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due, right? So that's kind of a wacky song if you actually think about the lyrics. And putting people in barrels. My daughter's name is Katie, so I converted the song instead of Daisy. We said, and we made it positive. So it's Katie, Katie, give me your answer due. I'm all the way crazy off of the love of you. It'll be a stylish marriage. God can afford the carriage, and you'll look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two. So I sang her that since she was born.
Oh, how nice. And she'll be telling her kids about it, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably.
Talking about grandma. If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
I'm gonna see you're 18 and raise you to 22. How about that?
Oh, that's close enough.
So at 22, when I had that car accident, several very key things happened in my newly formed marriage that in hindsight, I would say to anyone and everyone, your worth is not determined by anyone or anything on this planet. And we get so caught up in wanting to be accepted by other people. And even those that we love and our spouses and our family, and we miss the fact we're already accepted. We're already loved. We were created as masterpieces. We're just all work in progress. We're not perfect. We're becoming. And at 22, I didn't realize that. And I thought I was tied into this person I had married. And then I was tied into so many twisted things that I had been taught along the way of you can't get divorced and it doesn't matter what they do. And I had to learn a lot of hard lessons along the way to undo some of that, that I had kind of been brainwashed with along the way, and to understanding that my worth is determined by my creator. And God sees me as royal and a masterpiece, and he sees each person that's listening to this broadcast as such as well. And he sees what you are worth, and it is priceless, absolutely priceless. And I do wish I had understood that better at a younger age.
Well, it's all part of our learning curve. I totally agree with what you're saying. And my practice as a mindset coach is to remind people that all of your beliefs and values are implanted in your subconscious mind by the age of 7 years old. And you go happily along the way through your teens and 20s and 30s, wherever you're going. And when you're making a decision, all of those thoughts and things that are in your subconscious are still there telling you, you can't do that. you'll never be successful. Just holding you back, limiting beliefs, which you seem to have worked through, because a lot of people don't realize that they have another voice inside their head telling them they can't do stuff. And what I've come to learn is I come first. I have to take care of myself first. And it doesn't mean I'm selfish or anything. It just means I could give a lot more out to the community if I'm taking care of myself and love myself and practice the values and beliefs that are my authentic person of who I really am. So I commend you. I guess you, along the way, I don't know what age bracket you started figuring out that you don't have to go along with the crowd and the Joneses and all that stuff to make yourself feel worth anything in this world. I guess your belief in Jesus probably helped a lot. It gave you, a foundation to work with, because there's a lot of people don't have a foundation, especially nowadays. It's a sorry state in a lot of things I see and read, but there's always hope. There's always hope. And I'm sure you're doing a wonderful job, with all the things you're involved with, lifting people up a little bit. So that was good to hear that. So, I have I should probably start asking you how you got involved with businesses and working and employment. Maybe your first job, and then as you moved along, some of those experiences would be nice to listen to.
My very first one was actually at a grocery store, but I realized pretty quickly that was not my gig. And I moved across the strip mall to the pizza joint. And that was at 16. And that's where I really kind of learned that I had some leadership skills. They were leaving me the store and I was running it as a manager, although I couldn't have that title till I was 18. But that really taught me a lot of skills of what I had the capacity to do that I hadn't seen before. And I really attribute a lot of those leadership skills to my mom and my dad. My dad, even though he was in the Coast Guard for so long, he actually was a trailblazer in the Coast Guard. You had this unique opportunity to start off with what's called enlisted and then go through a 3 to 4 year period of what's called JG and then go into officer. They don't have that anymore, but he did that. And so as that entrepreneurial spirit of seeing this goal that he wanted to attain, and he found a way to do it. And then outside that, he's been in real estate for ever since 94, and in the top 1%. He's with one of the big brands. He's been in one of the top 1% and owns his own, and he's a broker. And my mom, along the same way, was doing Tupperware, was very high up in Tupperware, no matter where we moved. And so I feel like I was gifted some of those leadership skills that I took straight into entrepreneurship, actually. I went to college and had the brilliant idea of setting up a United Nations for teenagers. That was originally the goal, because I wanted people to understand that our future lies with the teenagers and the visions that they have and how they can impact today's society. And then I got married, so I didn't get a chance to do that. But because I got married and then had that car accident so quickly afterwards, a lot of my dreams, I had been accepted to a PhD program, had to be put on hold because I was surviving in that moment of just trying to get my health under control, work on the marriage, and then figure out what that looks like. Because I don't think we prepare people adequately for marriage. They have no idea what they're going into.
Absolutely not. It's easy to get in, but hard to get out.
Oh, and then, just to bring two people together. And then, even my daughter and I have a lot of conversations. Well, I think people should just live together for 6 months and see if they want to get married. And I'm like, oh, we have so much growing to do, don't we, dear? But those entrepreneur solutions had to come because we couldn't make the bills. I often laugh that I was a civilian for about 3 days. I came off my dad's insurance. I had my own civilian insurance. And then this car accident happened. And while I was in the hospital, my insurance lapsed. Like they wouldn't renew me because I was already in the hospital. And so then my husband at the time decided to go in the military, and that's a whole nother really cool story. But so then I was back in the military, but we had a lot of medical bills because of that lapse of the insurance. And so I had to find solutions for how to pay the bills. And so what's in your hand? And everybody has giftings in their hand, every single person. They might not see it. And the best way to figure that out is to ask somebody else, go, if you called me, what would you ask me to do for you?
Wow.
And you're going to find out pretty quickly what your giftings are. And at that point, I had already started teaching technology at colleges that I had actually been attending to the staff. It was totally a gift from God. I didn't take any technology. In fact, I hated technology. My dad bought me that old Commodore 64. That's how far back that goes. And he had to code to get it to print. I'm like, brought that thing back to my dad. He paid a pretty penny for that thing. And I said, could I have a typewriter back? Because I don't know what this thing is, but this is a nightmare. And then I go to college, and my college job was setting up the new internet because it was beginning to hit the campuses. And that gentleman had the patience of Job to teach me. So I ended up teaching tech for 30 years, built databases, worked at a variety of colleges and higher ed arenas. And those entrepreneur solutions with the leadership pairing really allowed me to come up with some unique solutions for people. And in that hindsight, I realized I'm really a strategist. I love to put the puzzles together. So if your business isn't going where it needs to go, let's sit down, let's talk. And I get these downloads from the Lord that are just so cool. And I get to ask certain questions for them to get these revelations and to get these light bulbs go off. That's my favorite thing, is when people get the light bulbs. They're like, oh, I can do that. It's like, oh, you got it. Yes, let's do it. So
It sounds like you're community organizer. You know how to get people together and come up with unique ideas that need work, where you can be helping other people. So you've been doing this is what you do nowadays, still, or?
it is. It's been through a little rebranding. Your Kingdom Connector was something that came out of the pandemic, actually, where I was, even in the pandemic, connecting people with resources and technology and tools to help their businesses move forward in the pandemic. And so my main focus is really to help Medical Mom Warriors. That was an organization I started in 2020 due to my own life of what was happening with my kid and myself, and realizing they need to make money from a waiting room, really, because they're so busy caregiving. It's not a traditional 9-to-5 setting. And so how can I best support them in connecting them with those time, money, resources to get their businesses off the ground so they can create passive income while they're taking care of their loved ones in any capacity. So that's something that kind of unfolded out of my own journey, which is really kind of neat to see.
So let me understand, are you working for a company, or is this your own company that you work out of as a brand, or how's that work?
Nope, it's my own. So K. Crystal Griffith Consulting, and we have a sister company called Medical Mom Warriors that I've run a couple of different summits for and provided holistic tools to help families along their journey. And then I also have a tech sister company called the Moxie CEO, where we are actually creating systems for those business owners to leverage their time, their money, and simplify their technology, because the reality is nobody enjoys technology, even us techies, like in the grand scheme of things, because it never works like it should. So how do we help people as business owners, really make the connections and the systems that they need to lighten the load, take that weight off of them, and get their business flourishing?
Exactly, get the business flourishing, because even when you have that knowledge and you're trying to run a business, you never have time to do all that extra marketing
right
yourself. And you're losing a lot of business because of that. So people like you come along, they need to listen, because if you're a good salesperson, which I'm not big on sales. I just like to talk to people and let them come to their own decision. But to make these business people aware of how much business you can get if you just do this, the SEO thing,
Mhm.
and, getting you up on Google a little further, is night and day as far as your business goes. So,
That is a very true statement.
and I've learned all this in the last year, because I've only been online a year when I started with the coaching stuff. I mean, I've been doing coaching since I went back to college in my 40s and took behavioral science and learned a lot of mindsets, and I applied it to myself. And that was the beginning of my spiritual journey. That's I've helped people along the way. And looking at retirement, I see online businesses are doing well. And what's my skill? Mindset. So here I am, not a public speaker at all. I came on seeing all these people making videos and talking about how great their product is. And I said to the coach I had at the time, do I have to do that? Do I have to be on video? He said, well, if you want people to trust you and get to know you, yeah. So I did a little practice in some live, 5-minute speeches, blah, 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 blah. And here I am doing podcasts. So it does work. You just got to walk through the fear. You walk through the fear and realize nothing hurt me. I'm still the same. And wow, look at the gift I gained.
One of the things one of my mentors says all the time is there's favor on your face. So get your face out there.
I never heard that one.
That's where your branding comes from as well. They begin to identify your face with your favor and what you're able to offer. And that's a huge event. And with TikTok and Reels and even Clubhouse for audio, especially your voice, it has such a distinct voice to it. People are going to recognize that even on Clubhouse. If you're moving your podcast over there, they're going to recognize that. And they're going to be, oh, I know exactly who that person is. Like Les Brown. No one can mistake Les Brown's voice, right? Even with their eyes closed. And so I've had the unique opportunity to hear him so many times. And I just love him. He's amazing. But yeah, the more that we can get ourselves out there, the better it's going to be for us and our business.
Something I heard, another thing I heard was people don't really buy your product, they buy you.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they know, like, and trust you. That's why, challenges as a virtual event, where you have a 3 or 5 day event, even a summit, because they're beginning to get to know you, your personality, how they're going to interact with you. They're going to get to hear your morals and your values. They're going to get to understand the culture that you're establishing as who you are. And one of the things that's super important to me is integrity, because of what I came out of with my marriage. And so when I say to people, the things that I'm going to be able to do for you, and I say that in complete authenticity, because if I don't meet those, then I have only become what I just left. And I want nothing to do with that. I want to create a branding that they have no doubt I'm going to get them something professional. I'm going to over deliver for them, and I'm going to get them where they need to go. And so that promise that you make when you're meeting with people, even in having a conversation like today, the conversation that we're having, and what you're bringing to the table is that culture. They're hearing that through your podcast, and that's how they're know, like, and trust you even more, and it goes to a deeper level.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how I do it. There's certain people I like to listen to, and I appreciate what they have to say, and there's others, as soon as I see them, I turn the channel or the radio or whatever, wherever they're at, because don't want to be affiliated with it.
Right.
So, yeah. So we all do it. So I guess the mission of you start your company with a mission of what you just kind of explained, with your integrity and what you're going to give them, because people talk, So if you're delivering a great product, they're going to tell their neighbors, their friends, their relatives,
Exactly.
and there's your referrals. So that'll keep you going.
I tried to build a website for 5 years and God's kept telling me, nope, don't build it yet. I'm like, Lord, you told me to do this business and I can't have a website. I'm like, how am I supposed to put this out there? And he goes, it'll come. And it never failed. The word of mouth referrals always came. It was amazing. And then all of a sudden out of the blue goes, okay, build a website. I'm like, really? Are you sure? Am I hearing you right? Like I can build a website. And then, no joke, I paid somebody to build that silly website because even as a techie, there are things that you like in tech and there are things that you don't like in tech.
Mhm.
And I'm like, we're going to pay somebody to do this. I know how to do it, but we're just going to pay somebody, right? I'm going to focus over here and do a couple other things. And I paid them, and it was a terrible website, and I had to rebuild it. And I'm like, Lord, you told me to build like I could do it. And he goes, yeah, I told you to do it. I'm like, that's not nice. That's not nice. Like, yes, it was quite funny.
Well, since you're a techie,
Uh-oh, it looks like we lost you. He has frozen.
it sounds to me like no matter how, here we are, we're back.
There we are, we're back. You're
It was a
frozen.
30-second blip. Okay, so how do you advertise? Before you got the website, were you just going off of Facebook or other platforms? How were you getting your message out?
So at that point, I actually had been certified as an inner healing practitioner through a company. And so they had their website and people could go onto their website and look in the areas of where we were. At that point, it needed to be one-on-one. It was pre-pandemic. So it was kind of cool because the Lord began to move me into global opportunity to work with inner healing with other people as well and work on their businesses. And so I had actually started on Zoom before the pandemic happened, which was kind of cool. So I already knew what to do. And so then at that point, it's really grassroots. I'm in different groups. I think I'm up to like 1,800 groups, which sounds like a lot, but in reality, it's not. As a business owner, you should be in a lot of groups, just learning from other people and seeing how they're attracting their clients, their who to what they're offering. And so as you position yourself as a person of value and service, then you're not in there to sell, you're in there to help them. And the more that you can provide that service to them, kind of as a taste and see is what we call it, then they see that you're there and you're authentic and they reach out to you. So you can do a lot of things organically. You don't have to pay for ads. And even now, Facebook ads, Google ads, they're not cheap. We're in the holiday season. You're probably going to pay $800 to $900 a lead on the low end. And so in the reality, unless you've got a multi-million-dollar business, that's pretty steep. And I work with a lot of small business entrepreneur owners. And so that's out of their realm. So I teach a lot of skills on how to do that marketing from the organic level, how to keep a spreadsheet of what groups offer free promotional days and times. And that's even how you and I connected. You had put into one of the groups, I'm looking for guests. And I'm like, hey, I'm always available. And that's how we connected. And you see just the value of what you dropped in there, which was, hey, I'm looking for guests, which is an automatic networking connection for your audience to get to know me as well. And in my service to show up to say, hey, I am willing to put in that time on the pre-front, the launch, to listen to the back end, to make sure we're all in line. And then that becomes a service to your people as well. So it's not hard to do organic. We just need to do more of it and be a little more deliberate, I think, around it and intentional.
Yeah, well, organic for me is I do content every day. My content is long because I always put in a lot of value. And I'm a little weak on the call to action part because I just feel like it's like putting a shingle out. But, just to let them know, hey, by the way, I am a coach and I do help people. I got to kind of remind them at the end of the story or whatever I'm writing about. And there's so many topics I could write about on mindset. It's just limitless.
It is.
So I do that, and I do I'm doing these podcasts now. I'm working on a webinar. But I really, to be honest, I'd rather just be coaching one-on-one. You know, that's where I feel this is my calling, and I feel most comfortable, and I feel like I'm helping. The part about when you're interacting on Messenger and you're meeting people and they say, well, what are your goals this month? Or what do you expect? And I say, somebody just told me this today and I loved it. They said, tell them your goal is to be happy. Are you happy? You come back with, are you happy? And you take over the conversation. Because
That is certainly a good one. I like
yeah,
that.
it's a great one. And I just get uncomfortable talking in numbers. I used to say, if I do the work and I'm helping somebody, the rewards come. I don't know what that looks like, but I know I'll be rewarded because it's always happened. To me, if you put in 50% of the work, the universe will put in the other 50% because it sees or it feels or it knows, however that works, that you're making a good effort. So it's going to push you along and help you. If you're lazy and sitting on the couch watching TV all day, no, you're not going to get any help. And if you're complaining that you're not doing anything because you're not doing anything, you're really not going to get any help. People nowadays need motivation. That's what I think.
That's a great way to think about your call to action.
Mhm.
Is you're stimulating their motivation. And sometimes it's not about listing all the things that we could do for them, but it's just to say, hey, if you want to delve deeper into this topic with me, click here and set up a 15-minute strategy call or a 15-minute clarity call or a 15-minute breakthrough call, whatever you want to call it, mindset call for you. Right. And then you're connecting. Like yesterday, I had 4 back-to-back 15-minute phone calls with clients. And all I did, it was a gift for Black Friday. I said, hey, let's get together. Let's have a little coffee chat. Here are the 3 questions. I want to know where you are in the system. I want to know where you want to go in the system. And I want to know how we can support you. And each one of those calls became such a breakthrough for them in 15 minutes because they began to see what they have achieved and accomplished, which is huge. A lot of people don't take the time to celebrate those things. Like, oh, I just got to get on to the next thing. I want to encourage all of your audience, when you have a win, whatever that win is, even for your kid, stop and celebrate it. Put the stake in the ground as a celebration moment, because even for your kid, like yesterday, my kid turned in her final business paper for a college class she's in. And it's part of, she's going to graduate from high school in May with her associates. And I'm like, we are going to party. You just turned in your last paper for this class. This is exciting. And so even those little wins, we have to teach ourselves to celebrate those, because if we don't, we miss it. And then it takes a laser focused call, like what I did yesterday, for them to realize how much they've accomplished in the last 90 days. And then let's lay out the goals for where you're going next. And those don't have to be super in depth. It can be the vision, right? Without vision, people perish. And so we have to keep the vision in front of us so we can keep aligned with that goal. And, you know, it's just such a treat to see how many people are excelling and to be a part of that opportunity. So when you're offering your content, I would really encourage you to just say, hey, if you want to learn more, if you want to delve deeper, here's my link. And that just encourages them to go, oh, you know, I do want to talk about that some more. Like there's something there that he just said that kind of got me. And I do want to talk about that. And they click on that link and they book with you. And again, even that 15 minutes yesterday wasn't a selling call. And sales doesn't have to be this icky thing. Sales is really about you bringing a solution to the table that they see they need. And that's all it has to be. And so sometimes we get all wrapped up in these scripts and we miss the fact it's about a conversation. And if you have the answer for something that they need an answer for, then they're going to come to you.
You make it sound so simple. I love it. So anyway, has there been any important professional mentors that you've followed other than Tony Robbins, who everybody follows?
I appreciate Tony Robbins, but I don't follow Tony Robbins.
Well, I just threw it out there because that's
But
your,
I do know him. I've heard many of his things. He had a ton of health things that he had to work through that was very inspirational to see him come out of. And I do appreciate him. But not on an ongoing basis. I actually am partnered up with my mentor, Pedro Adaho, and he stumbled into what he's doing with challenges and coaching and the kingdom as far as really understanding how we as Christians are in a kingdom with the Lord and what that looks like for our responsibilities. And a lot of that is based on Miles Monroe, Dr. Miles Monroe out of the Bahamas. He's passed, but all of his legacy lives on YouTube. Don't we all appreciate YouTube? And, between those two, and then I've had several others along the way that have propelled me into where I am today. But ultimately, I think it's really my mom and dad when I come down to it, because had I not had that growing up and seen what that looks like, that my dad was willing to do whatever it took. He was chopping wood. I was shrimping on a boat with him on downtimes to not just get ends to meet, but to live a life of comfortable means. I think when we look back, there are people along the way that may not be the $1 million coaches that are the most important, but it's the ones that you encounter along the way that really shape your life the most in those formative years.
kind of like having a good teacher in school that you always remember, the one teacher.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the thing with your mom and dad, the expression about surrounding yourself with successful people, they were successful people, and you were picking up. If you surround yourself with people that don't do anything and are lazy, you end up becoming lazy. So attribute it to their being successful parents. Even though they're your parents, you were inhaling the fumes of success, and it was passed on. You couldn't help but become successful yourself. That's how I see it anyway.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on.
Okay, so now that we're coming to the end of this, is there any one question you wished I'd asked, and how would you have answered it?
There are so many questions that can be asked. Instead, I would like to request some help. How about that? Could I do that instead?
Sure, put it out there.
So I'm working on a little project that I started last year and the year before, that we talk about miracles that have inspired businesses. And so I actually have 12 people that we're about to put into an anthology book, and I would love to replicate this. So I would love to hear from your audience if they have experienced a miracle in any form or fashion. And those miracles range. Like, there's been days where a miracle was a check that showed up to my mailbox. And then there have been days where I've been physically healed. My child is a living miracle. I wasn't able to conceive, and yet I did. And so we have scientific proof of how all that happened. And so miracles can look at such a wide variety of ranges, but I would love to hear from your audience about those miracles that they've experienced along the way, and especially if they've led to a business and how that came to be. One of the examples would be the couple that figured out Alonzo's oil and how that helped their son, and had their dad not just worked in a garage to figure out how to get this oil extracted to help his son, it never would have happened. And how many millions of people have been impacted by that miracle, and it turned into a business. And so I love those stories. I think they're so full of hope and excitement and truth for those that are along the path going, I don't know if this is going to work. And I want to encourage them that it will. So if you guys have those miracles and you have a business that's come out of something like that, I'd love to hear about it. So definitely reach out to me at yourkingdomconnector.com and set up a 15-minute chat with me. I'd love to hear more about your story and see if it's a fit. So.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask you, if you can tell us where to reach you. So Is that the only site you have, or is there anything else you want to put up there?
Actually, kcrystalgriffith.com actually goes to the same link, and yourkingdomconnector.com. And that's just my scheduler, because I really want to be able to communicate and chat with you guys, just like we've been chatting today, and hear more about your stories. Uh-oh, it looks like he's frozen again.
Just say one more. I don't, okay.
You're back.
Back to your, when you said, I don't think I could do that. I found a 3-letter word that you could add to the end of those sentences.
Okay, tell me.
Yet.
Exactly. That is so true. Be a solution seeker.
Yes.
Be a solution seeker. It's
I
just a
can't,
matter of time to find it.
I don't think I could do that yet. And that
Exactly.
takes care of that.
That's
Well,
exactly right.
this has been a very exciting episode. And it's been a joy to experience. And thank you, Crystal, for joining us today. We would
My
like to invite you back for a future interview as well. With that said, this is Joseph James with the Joseph James Show. Be sure to follow us, and we will see you in the next episode.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.